Hey everyone, AI, right? It's kind of like dot everywhere these days.
Yeah, it really is.
But I gotta admit, sometimes I wonder, like, how much do we really understand about what's going on under the hood?
But well, yeah, it can feel like a bit of a black box, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
So today we're doing a deep dive into one really cool piece of the AI puzzle, which is how we actually measure the accuracy of these systems. Because it's not always as straightforward as you might think.
Uh-huh.
We found this fascinating document that explains something called a matrice de confusion, which
Hmm.
basically translates to confusion matrix.
Okay.
And before you think we're about to confess to being totally confused ourselves,
Right.
this actually refers to a tool that helps us understand the computer's mistakes, not ours.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like having a detective's magnifying glass for AI. You know what I mean? So let's say we're trying to teach a computer to recognize a stop sign. The confusion matrix helps us analyze, like, how often it gets it right, which is obviously important. But then when it does mess up, it actually reveals exactly what kind of mistake it's making.
So it's less about being confusing and more about like clarifying, giving us a clearer picture.
Exactly. It breaks everything down into like four main possibilities. True positives, true negatives, false positives, and false negatives.
Okay, so let's unpack those terms because I think those are the things that really trip people up.
Right.
Let's start with the good news, right? Like what on earth is a true positive?
A true positive is basically a win for the AI.
Yeah.
It means the model correctly identified what it was supposed to. So in our example, it saw a stop sign and flagged it as a stop sign, like it should.
Perfect. It did its job. So then a true negative is basically just the flip side of that coin then, right?
Yeah, pretty much. So in this case, the system would correctly identify when something is not a stop sign.
Okay.
Like maybe it's looking at a tree or a building or something like that.
Right.
But the point is, it knows the difference.
Awesome. Okay, so that all makes sense. So where do the false categories come in and when do things start to get a little dicey?
All right, so this is where it gets really interesting and, potentially a little problematic, depending on the situation, of course. So a false negative, that happens when the model completely misses something that's actually there.
So going back to our stop sign example, it would be like our AI is driving along and just completely overlooks a stop sign that's right there in front of it.
Unfortunately, yeah, that's exactly what it would be.
And that's obviously a really big deal if we're talking about like self-driving cars, which is what everybody always brings up.
Right, exactly. And I think that really highlights why understanding these different types of errors, it's just so important. Now, on the other side of the coin, we have a false positive. And that's when the model gets a little, I guess, overexcited and kind of cries wolf when there is no wolf, so to speak.
Oh, okay. So it would be like if it slammed on the brakes for a fire hydrant, thinking it was a stop sign.
Yeah, that's a great example. Or, it could even just be like a weird shadow or something that it's misinterpreting.
Right, right. And so obviously, I mean, nobody loves it when their car slams on the brakes for no reason.
Of course not.
But as you said, a false negative in that situation could be like infinitely more dangerous.
Exactly.
It kind of highlights how accuracy isn't this like one size fits all concept when it comes to AI, right?
100%. And the interesting thing is our source specifically uses the example of detecting cars in images.
Right.
But think about all the other ways this concept applies, right? Like we see it in medical diagnoses, spam filters, even those dating app algorithms that seem to know us better than we know ourselves. It's kind of creepy, actually.
Wait, hold on. You're telling me a confusion matrix can like shed light on my dating app woes? Okay, now I'm really interested.
Well, think about it this way. A false positive in the dating app world, that might be like the app matching you with someone who you might not actually be interested in. Which, it might be a little annoying, but it's not the end of the world.
Right.
But then a false negative, that's like the app totally missing out on a potential perfect match for you.
Wow. I never thought of it like
Yeah,
that.
it makes you wonder how many misconnections are out there.
Right, because of a few false negatives.
Exactly.
That's crazy. But it's so true what you're saying about how the consequences of those errors, they really depend so much on the context.
Yeah, a false negative in medical imaging where it like misses a tumor or something like that, that's obviously a much bigger deal than a false positive in your spam filter, where maybe a harmless email ends up in your junk folder.
It's not even comparable. So I guess like the big question is, what does all of this mean for us, right? Because we're surrounded by AI-driven decisions every single day.
I think it just underlines how important it is to be, informed citizens when it comes to technology. Like, Understanding these concepts, even just being aware of something like the confusion matrix, it empowers us to ask those really critical questions about the technology that we use every single day.
Right.
It's like, how accurate is the system really? What are the potential consequences if it makes different kinds of errors? And ultimately, do the benefits actually outweigh the risks? Those are questions that we should all be asking.
That's such a good point. So I guess like the takeaway for everyone listening is the next time you encounter an AI-powered system, don't just blindly trust it.
Yeah.
Take a second, think about the confusion matrix, the potential for errors, and what those errors might actually mean in that specific situation.
Stay curious, keep asking those questions, because the world of AI is only getting more complex and, more deeply intertwined with our lives all the time.
It's true. It's here to stay, so we better try to understand it.